Good evening and welcome to the FITT Show, financial information for the day and tomorrow. I'm Bobby P. Kinzer.
And I'm Thomas Doty.
And we are the FITT Show, helping our people get their finances in shape. Welcome, everybody. We're here every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And our primary goal is to teach individuals new methods and strategies on how to create and sustain wealth. Like I said, we're here every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and we talk about all kinds of subjects: investing, credit, financial goals, tax strategies, reducing debt. And this last week's show, we talked about an approach to financial planning. I hope you liked it. This week's show, we're going to talk about the truth about homeowners insurance. How you doing today, Dope?
I'm doing okay. And Bob, I just want to mention, some people probably heard that topic and probably got a yawn out of a lot of people. And it's so funny because when I tell people about our show, they always think it involves a stock tip or some hot stock or some get rich quick scheme. And just to reiterate, that's not what we're about. We're about building wealth, and that means safeguarding your assets as well as generating earnings with your assets. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about today. So bear with us. Don't again, if you're waiting for that hot stock tip to make you rich, this ain't the place for you. But we're going to show you how to put discipline and build wealth in every aspect of your financial life. And Bob, how am I doing? I keep looking out my window expecting to see Noah and his ark because all it's doing here is raining.
Wow. Yeah, I know you're getting a lot of rain down there. And I always get mixed up. Are you actually in Charlotte?
I live in a suburb of Charlotte, but it's in South Carolina.
Which is called?
Fort Mill.
Wow.
Okay. Right across the border.
Well, like Dote said, we're not selling any products. We're just trying to give you financial information. We're not financial advisors. We're financial education instructors, if you can call us that. So, Dote, let's talk about one of the subjects, our main subjects that we start at the top of the show. And I know a lot of people are really interested to hear what we got to say about this crazy stock market.
Yeah, it has been on a trip. And it all started it's been going on for a while with all the volatility. But last Friday, a weak jobs report came out. And if you take the weak job report, there were a lot of earnings disappointments because this is earnings seasons or earnings reporting seasons. So you had a lot of earnings disappointment. A lot of people had outlooks that were weak. And then you still got the crazy global unrest going on everywhere. You take all that together and you got sudden volatility. On Monday, the Dow's stumbled almost 1,000 points. The Magnificent Seven at one point had lost over $1 trillion. I said that right. $1 trillion in value with the big drops. It's recovered somewhat, but it's still below where it had been. As you can see, the S&P is pretty much flat with last week, but the NASDAQ is down 3%. That's a bunch. You start looking through the stocks that I hold. Microsoft's down 3%. Tesla it's down 8%. Tesla has been going up and down. We've said that all along. Apple's kind of interesting. It only went down 2%, but there's a lot of news about Apple going on because Warren Buffett sold a bunch of his shares of Apple. And he had always been a big supporter. So everybody is kind of looking at that cross-eyed to see why he did what he did. And still don't know for sure why. Pfizer dropped a couple. NVIDIA dropped about 4. Google dropped about 8. So they're all dropped in that 3 to 4% range. And again, it was actually worse than this. There has been some recovery the last couple of days, but things have kind of settled down now. And it's like I always say, when things like this happen, they're buying opportunities. I actually bought a little bit when the market took the big hit, and that's kind of how you have to look at it. That things are going to get better. I always feel that way. And if you're investing for the long term, you don't get too terribly upset about that. I'd hate to think about someone who had a lot of their retirement money wrapped up in a whole lot of stocks from the NASDAQ side, especially if they had it in the Magnificent Seven, because their portfolio took a big hit. And so, as we always say, you invest for the long term. There's going to be volatility. Hopefully, this thing will settle out. Fed will cut interest rates and things will start moving in a more positive direction.
Well, gold was up about $25. Silver is down. But like we say, hang in there.
How's your Bitcoin doing?
Bitcoin is down 5%, though. It's down $3,467, down to $61,148. The total market cap for cryptocurrency is down about 7%. It's interesting because I made a statement before, when the market was down, crypto went up, but this time the market went down and so did crypto. So there you go. That's why crypto is considered so highly speculative. Dogecoin is down about 20%. So cryptocurrencies took a big hit. Ethereum took a big hit too at 17% down. But like we say, it's all about the long play. So though, let's get into our topic for today, which is the truth about homeowners insurance.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, not only do you have to grow your assets, you have to safeguard them, and homeowners insurance is really taking care of, probably for a lot of people, their biggest asset. And it's one of those things that I don't think a lot of people spend a lot of time looking at or reading all the fine print in their homeowners policy, but you'd be surprised at the limits there are on certain items within your policy. And we're going to give you some reasons for that in a minute. So when you buy homeowners insurance, typically what you're thinking is it covers any loss or damage to your home, the house itself, the structure. And we assume that everything's included in your policy. But if you look at your policy, if you look at it in detail, you see a coverage called personal property coverage. And I'm sure most people think that covers all my personal property. That would be my furniture, my clothes, my computers, pictures, my jewelry, all those things that you buy and have on your walls and in your drawers and on your floors. But if you look closely at all those items above, there are limits on just what the homeowner policy cover. So it won't pay for, if you lose everything, it doesn't pay for everything. There's limits on specific categories of products. And we're going to tell you a little bit about a few of those.
And whether you Thurston Howell a third of Oliver Twist, a broke person, chances are you have a necklace or old family ring, perhaps a watch from your grandfather left for you. Jewelry and watches on most homeowner insurance policies built-in limit in the neighborhood about $1,500. Now that is not a lot of money when it comes to jewelry and watches. Speaking about money, how much of that are you keeping hidden away between your mattresses? Those people don't trust the bank. Hopefully not a lot, because things happen. And since the limit of cash equivalents can be $500 or less if you lost it, you need to, think about also, when you talk about your Second Amendment rights, those like firearms and ammunition, well, they also have a limit within the policies as well. And they usually are limited around $1,000 to $2,000. And I know people who got rifles worth $3,000. So let's talk a little bit about some of those limits, though.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's really surprising if you think about the let's say, for example, your silverware and goldware, which a lot of people have or got it from their wedding or decided to buy, splurge on some real nice silverware. The limit usually is about $2,000. Okay, so many people are working from home, and you got your computer, and your employer's giving you a computer to work at home. A lot of people have 2 monitors now. That seems to be what everybody likes to have. Some people still have a photocopier, fax machine, and you think about all those things in your office. But if you really look at your policy, any business property that you have in your home is probably limited in your homeowner's insurance policy. A lot of times it covers 0 of business property. So if it's for a business, don't assume that your homeowner's policy is automatically going to cover it, because in most cases it won't. So a lot of people have a very expensive phone, and if you don't have a separate policy for your phone, again, don't think your homeowner's insurance policy is going to cover it, because in most cases it won't. And those things, things around
Hey, Dope, you're breaking up. Can you hear me? Well, you're breaking up. You're breaking up on the site, and you're frozen.
Let me go out and come back in.
No, you.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you do that? And while Dope is doing that, I want to talk a little bit about what you can do about it. Now that you all riled up and at the audacity of insurance companies to put limits on so many things, let me explain that, what's occurred, what is really occurring, how it's a good thing, and what you can do to protect yourself and your special stuff.
Is it better now?
Yes, much better. Now let's say you and your neighbor have, the same house, for instance, right? And, the model homes are common. So this isn't something you should have to think too hard about. Same house. Difference is that you love and collect guns. Your father is a jeweler, and your brother is a banker who never misses opportunity to tell you that you need to keep plenty of cash on hand when the end of the world comes. So yeah, your house is full of guns, jewelry, and cash. But on the other hand, the fellow next door is a minimalist. He has solar panels, which also have a sub-limit also, by the way, you all. Electric car and little stuff within the confines of his domain.
And, if you think about it, those 2 examples, you got 2 dramatically different exposures in the event of a loss. So an insurance company is kind of in a tough position, because they can't decide how to charge a premium for 2 different types of situations. Okay. They could assume everybody's got expensive stuff and everybody's premiums would be a lot higher, or they can put limits and lower the premiums for everyone. So option 2 saves everyone's money, and that's the route they went. The limits work for the majority of households because, again, there's that quote unquote average. Therefore, the premiums are lower to reflect that. But what to do with all of your stuff is you can protect it. You can either request to have those limits increased. Say, example, you have jewelry, or you have expensive flatware, or anything expensive. You can schedule that and increase your limit on that particular item. Okay. And these policies, then you have a higher limit on those. So you're covered for your own particular situation. Okay. And that's what you have to manage. And we always talk about, again, building wealth. It's not simple. The more you get, the more complicated it becomes. And these are the things you have to do. You have to take inventory of what you got, compare it to your insurance policy, make sure your limits match what you have. So knowing what your policy covers and what it doesn't will help prevent any undue surprises in the case of a loss. Hopefully you don't have one, but hey, losses happen every day. And you look at all these catastrophes going on now with Debbie, very easy to have a big loss. So the list of limits within most policies isn't complete. And so when you check your policy, you might find other categories that you might need to take a look at.
So we know that you know some of these things, but some of these things you may not. So what does home insurance cover? Now basic home insurance policy pays to repair and in some cases completely rebuild your home or other structures on your property when damaged from certain events. Now, most insurance policies cover 5 types of insurance. One is dwelling. This covers the damage to your house and the structures attached to your home, such as your porch and garage. Other structures, this pays for damage to the fences, shed, freestanding garages, and other structures that are not attached to your house but are located on your property. Personal property, this reimburses you for your possessions, including furniture, electronics, appliances, or clothing, if they're damaged or lost in the event. Loss of use, this pays for your temporary living expenses, such as hotel bills, meals, while your home is being repaired after disaster. And then the last one is personal liability, and this covers the cost of medical bills for people who get hurt on your property and your legal fees if that person sues for the damages.
Okay, now does your homeowners cover natural disasters? And that's one you have to look at, because in some situations you may have to get flood insurance if you live in a flood zone. And a lot of times it covers natural disasters such as tornadoes, hurricanes, lightning strikes, snowstorms. But you got to make sure that you have the coverage that you need. For example, sewer backups, in some cases is covered, but the flood has to come from the outside versus coming from the inside. There's a bunch of little things you need to make sure that your homeowner insurance covers if you are at risk for a specific type of natural disaster.
Now, does homeowner insurance cover what's in your home? Yes, home insurance policies also cover contents of your home from damage or theft, but you must keep in mind you may need to provide evidence of your belongings to your insurance provider when you file a claim. A little tip is take pictures of your possessions and store them on the cloud. Don't put them in file cabinets in your house, because that can, you have a fire or a tornado or something, then it's gone. But file it in the cloud so that you're prepared.
And even better yet, Bob, walk through and take a video and just walk through and explain what you have. And that will give you a leg up on convincing the homeowner's insurance, the company that holds your policy, that you indeed had, a 70-inch TV and very nice furniture. And a lot of times people won't have receipts for all that. But if you're smart and you have something big, you will keep your receipts, either obviously not in your house because they can be destroyed. And so I suggest taking a video, just walking through your house and describe what you have in every room. And that way you have a leg up if something catastrophic was to happen. And so does home insurance cover short-term living expenses? In most cases it does. For example, if your house is damaged and you can't stay there, coverage will pay for you to live somewhere short term, maybe a hotel. It'll pay for your meals. It'll pay other expenses that are included in your policy while your home is being rebuilt or repaired. Though some policies place time limits or reimbursement limits, you need to take a look, see what it is, make sure you're satisfied with those specific limits.
Now, does homeowner insurance protect you against lawsuits or injury or property damage? Now, standard home insurance provides liability protection against lawsuits for bodily injury or property damage that you or family members costs to other people when they're on your property. Now, this protection pays for attorney fees and any court awards up to the policy's limit. And that is key. Make sure you look at what the policy's limits are, because every policy has different limits.
Okay, and let's talk about some of the things that homeowners insurance doesn't cover. And it's kind of relevant now with all the flooding that's going on. And in most cases, homeowners insurance policy does not protect you from floods. You know, standard homeowners and policy will not. If you live in a floodplain, and that's an area that's susceptible to flooding, you have to have a separate flood insurance policy. I actually got, I won't say tricked, I can blame it on my own ignorance, but I think the second house I bought in Columbus, Ohio, I ended up living in a floodplain, but I didn't find out till I was getting ready to close. And at that time, the federal government was subsidizing the cost of flood insurance. So as I remember, my policy was only about $100 a year. And, but in most cases, if you don't live in a floodplain, your homeowner's insurance policy will not cover floods. And flood insurance, it can cost an average of about $1,000 a year, which can be pretty expensive. So you can, and what's really interesting is the government used to subsidize those, but it's actually getting out of that. And some of those flood insurance policies are becoming crazy expensive, which is creating situations where people on the coast are getting very, very high insurance quotes. And so they're left, and I've seen them as high as $20,000 a year. And so it comes to a decision: do you pay $20,000 a year for insurance, or do you just not have insurance and hope your house doesn't get flooded? And I've also read about situations where people couldn't sell their houses because they were in a floodplain and the government's not subsidizing it. So that flood insurance is so expensive. So when people find out about it, they go, heck no, I'm not moving there. So be aware when you move, make sure you're not in a floodplain.
And if you are, they got a government site that you can go and get price quotes called floodsmart.gov, which is a government entity. So does homeowners insurance cover earthquakes, landslides, or sinkholes? Now, whoever even thinks about this, whoever even go and think about, but you know what? Sinkholes and landslides happen. Earthquakes do. Now, home insurance does not cover damage that results from land movements, such as earthquakes, landslides, and sinkholes. Who knew? For those who live in areas where earthquakes are a real risk, additional insurance is optimal. That's particularly true for people who live in California, the state of Washington, and Missouri. These are the top 3 earthquake markets in the country, which I didn't realize, though, as identified by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Now, Californians can purchase a policy through the California Earthquake Authority. Now, that tells you something right there. California has the California Earthquake Authority. It is also possible to purchase an additional policy or add coverage for landslides and sinkholes if you are at risk.
Okay, let's talk about water leaks. So in most cases, homeowners insurance policy will cover damages resulting from a leak if the leak is sudden or accidental. And so to contrast that, if it's a leak that comes about because of poor maintenance, they won't cover it. Now, how they find that out, I have no idea, but and they're in business to make money. So in most cases, they're going to try to minimize what they pay out. So it's real important for you to keep your house maintained well, so you don't have any slow leaks that end up creating issues. And just keep in mind that you're going to have to prove to the insurance company that your leak is something that should be covered. So that may determine how you approach it, how you document it, and things of that sort. You just be prepared, because they're going to try to push back when it comes to a claim. They make money when they play as little as possible in claims, which is unfortunate.
So what about mold? Who ever even think about mold, right? But once again, these things happen because that's why they have different policies for this type stuff. Now, mold is not usually covered by a home insurance policy unless it has sprung up as a result of what's called the covered peril, such as a water heater bursting and causing flooding, which eventually leads to mold. That's good to know. But mold is not covered if it was caused by neglect, such as, let's say, you failing to deal with a pipe leaking water under the kitchen sink for months, which results in mold growth. They won't cover that.
Okay, and let's go back to expensive jewelry. And again, in most cases, the homeowner's insurance, it will cover it, but it will have a specified limit on how much they cover. And if you have anything of value, that limit is usually relatively low. It may be 1,000, it may be 2,500, maybe as high as 5,000. But if you have a very expensive ring or a very expensive watch, or let's call it a lot of jewelry, which over time people do accumulate some pretty nice stuff, you probably need to get an appraisal of that item and then have a separate policy, which is called where you schedule those items. So those items are covered at the appraised value. And so another thing that happens, if you buy something that's 30 years old and you don't have an appraised value for it, you can get into an argument with the insurance company as to its worth. So if you have that appraisal, you know what it's worth, the insurance company knows what it's worth. If something happens to it, there's no hassle. But if you don't have an updated appraisal, you can run into some issues.
Now, this next one is pretty interesting. Does homeowner insurance cover home office equipment? Now, you run a business out of your home, right? A typical home insurance policy provides only $2,500 coverage for business equipment. We're talking about copiers, if you have that in your house, shredders, things like that that you use for your business. Now, the Insurance Information Institute reports, but for as little as $25, you can raise your policy's coverage to $5,000 up from the $2,500. And I know a lot of people didn't know that because, now, especially with a lot of people work from home, and they got businesses and they, using their home. This is very important to know that there is a limit on, certain business equipment in your house. So it's very important that you understand that.
And Bob, let me mention too, and we've been talking about homeowners insurance policy, but if you are a renter, you can buy renter's insurance to, again, protect your valuable things, be it your phone, your computer, if you have expensive jewelry. Because if you don't have a policy, obviously nothing's covered. Your landlord's not going to make good on something if your house is broken into or if damage happens in the house. So you can go out and buy renter's insurance. And if you have any large items, you can, again, schedule those to have those covered. And fortunately, renter's insurance is not very expensive. And if you do have things of value, it's worth it for peace of mind to get that insurance, the renter's insurance policy.
Yeah, that's a good tip, though, because a lot of people think they don't need it. But, things happen, you all. And just like we talked about the stock market and not being predictable about things, but things happen, and it's all about protecting, and, especially your hard-earned, things that you accumulated. It's worth protecting those things while you're alive.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about. And typically, as you go things, you have to make sure they're protected. If you work 30, 35 years and you bought a lot of jewelry, you upgrade your furniture, you upgrade your house, got to protect it. You have to protect it. And you have to have a way of proving that you have these nice things. So if something happens to it, you can convince the insurance company to reimburse you for your loss. And the other thing I wanted to mention is we talked about somebody getting hurt on your property. There's also there's two other separate types of insurance you can get. You can get an umbrella policy that basically covers you for more than your homeowners and car insurance policies cover. So again, as you've accumulated assets in your life, if something bad happens, let's say you damage a truck that's carrying 10 Mercedes and the value of it is $1 million. Your car insurance policy probably won't cover all of that. But if you have an umbrella policy over those, it will cover those extra things that you may destroy. And again, that's going to happen as you accumulate wealth. People will try to sue you for it as you get older in life. And so you want to make sure you're covered in case a catastrophe happens. Or if your kids cause a catastrophe, you have to be able to cover it. So consider an umbrella insurance policy if you feel you need more liability coverage than what's included in your homeowners or car insurance policies.
And though on that property insurance thing, especially personal injury, with these cars nowadays being more expensive, a lot of people usually take the lower coverage of $50,000 to save, paying a higher premium. But talking to my friend who owns a insurance agency, he recommends that people at least have $100,000 to $300,000, which is you can still get within the policy, and it's only a few dollars more. But with the way especially these expensive cars and people are nowadays, it's almost worth to at least have a coverage around about $300,000, and it's not that many more. It's pennies on the dollar, by the way.
Yeah, and Bob, I even recommend that's where the insurance policy comes in, because you may have $1 million umbrella insurance over that,
right?
In case you have a catastrophe that exceeds that $300,000, you're still covered, because otherwise they'll come after your assets.
Yep,
people love to sue.
Yeah, because most people don't even have the basic 100,000, 300,000 coverage.
Well, a lot of times it depends on the state. There's a state minimum. And a lot of people take that state minimum, which usually isn't enough.
Right. So let's go to the summary and takeaways on the truth about homeowners insurance. All right. Take it away, Dope.
Okay. You have to know your limits. You got to know what you own and know what your limits to make sure there's not a mismatch, that you don't have $10,000 worth of guns and your limit on your policy is only $1,000. Know what your limits are on everything that's important in your house.
And your policy is unique to you. Just like me and Dope always talk about how your financial plan is, unique to you. It's all personal. The same thing with your policy. It's very unique to you. It's specific to, like the example we gave earlier about people having the same house, the same models and everything, but you can have different things that you insuring within them. So make sure you understand, that, all insurance, homeowners insurance policies are not created equal.
And you've got to monitor your policy. I mean, I'd like to tell you that you reach a point where you got enough money saved and you sit back and you don't have to worry about anything. But that is not even close to being true. The more you get, the more you have to be on top of things. Insurance is you adjust your policy as the value of your, for example, your house. If your house has gone up tremendously in value, you got to increase your coverage to make sure you have enough insurance to cover the increase in the value of your house. You got to shop around to make sure that you're paying a good price. And it's pretty easy to compare insurances because you know what coverages you want. And so you can get a quote from anywhere. You just have to make sure when you ask for a quote that you're getting the coverages that you want. And so just be prepared to review and adjust as necessary.
And this last one is very important. Well, I mean, they all are important, these summary takeaways, but this last one is very important. It's know what's covered. As you can see, there's different limits on different things. And they did that so everybody would be paying high insurance premiums and don't have, half the stuff that they're paying for. So, but know what you have, know what's covered in your house, because things happen, you all, and we're not speaking bad or things, on you. It's just that it's called, be prepared. And a lot of homeowners insurance is not as expensive as what people think, but it's better to have coverage over, these things, especially if they're heirlooms or stuff from your families and things that, were very near and dear to you. So
what's that old saying about it's better to have and don't need than to need and don't have?
Wow. You know what? That's sort of going to be like with my quote of this week is going to be, dope. You sort of preempted me there, buddy. But yeah, you didn't know that, did you? You must be psychic. Give me a lottery number. But shout out to my sister Gloria and Linda. Nola didn't make it today. I don't think she's out there. What's up, Carl Chapman and Rodney L. Madison, Senior, TheNoteExperience.com. Check him out there. He's got some great investment alternatives with mortgage notes. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in. This was our 161st show. Thank you all and look forward to seeing you next week. And I'm going to leave you with the quote of the week. And it almost could be quoted from Dope, but this actually is the quote from Warren Buffett. He said, "There's no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need."
Holy cow.
Let me say that again, though. There's no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need.
That's deep.
Yes. So you all look forward to seeing you next week, same back channel, and we'll be coming with you another good topics. Remember, put your comments or ideas or type of subjects that you want us to talk about in the comment box, and you can still do that. Even though we get ready to sign out, if you're still there and put it in the comment box, I will see those and we will attend to those. We're always looking for new ideas. But once again, thank you all for your support, and we'll see you next Thursday at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live, The FITT Show. Financial information for today and tomorrow. Good night.